Hi there. Hi, everyone, to the Red Jackets communities. My name is Sthembiso Phakathi. I run my own practice. My work is involved with leadership and culture. I have 25 years experience doing this work. I'm passionate about developing leaders and developing teams. I'm so glad today that I'm having a conversation with my colleague, Kim Vermaak. Kim is the mindset whisperer, helps leaders and teams in high pressure or high conflict environments. She strengthens emotional intelligence so they can communicate honestly, understand each other, and work through unspoken tensions that often divides them. Her insight comes from years of experience working intimately with leaders, coaching them, doing through book coaching, where she says the doubts, fears, and imposter syndrome they carry. Kim also follows the patterns that often show up in how they lead and relate to the organizations they lead. Kim, welcome. Good to see you and good to have a conversation with you today.
Super. Thank you so much for having me today.
Great stuff. I want to ask you this question. In terms of the work you do, what is the topical issues that you cover when you speak at your events?
Very often when I work with teams, I get that kind of them and us kind of attitude, and
Yeah,
that makes it really difficult. And so, one of the things that I do is I bridge that distance,
sure.
uh, because we're all human beings and we all have very much the same kinds of fears and doubts and worries within our context,
Yes,
but the feelings are still there. And so, you can start humanizing the other person, then you can start having more meaningful conversations. I've actually been in a room beforehand where people are facing retrenchments.
really.
They don't know what the outcome is going to be, and they say things like, if we just got rid of that particular role, everything would
Yeah,
be okay. And then that
yeah.
particular role is sitting in the room. But when you do the bridging, then it actually makes you understand maybe we can still work together, even though we're so different.
I like I like what you mentioned about being human or humanizing conversations so that because we're all human first and then professional second. Yeah. Now, thank you so much. I want to
Correct.
ask you this. Why is this work or this topic so crucial at this moment, especially for your audiences?
Well, we're going through change at a rapid rate. And particularly as people are starting to work remotely, we don't have the same level of connection that we used to have. And so those humanizing conversations are incredibly important. And, at the moment, we're also going through a little bit of global conflict. We
Yeah,
always
yeah,
have conflict, but
yeah.
now it becomes a lot more scary because it's impacting pricing and all kinds of things, and people are
Everything.
fearful.
Yes.
So you need to have those kinds of conversations.
Mm. And also to be bold and to be frank about what's before us. And I think those courageous conversations are very, very critical. I'm with you there because I find also most of my clients are grappling with so much uncertainty as we move into all kinds of economic and political uncertainty. Next question is I'm curious about this. Which audiences benefit most about your talks or your work?
Well, interestingly, when I started out, I was just doing book coaching. And so that
Yeah.
answer would have been very easy. But as I'm working with leaders in the book coaching space, I get to
Yes.
find out the things that they're really grappling with.
Hmm.
And so very often it's founders, entrepreneurs of all kinds, but
Yes.
then also leaders who are expected to lead a team. And sometimes, as a leader, you're promoted because you've got a skill set, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you actually know yet how to lead people. You've just led yourself, but not a greater team. And so, those kinds of people that are transitioning into entrepreneurship or transitioning into management, and even the team members that now have to accept a new manager, that's
Yeah.
a very daunting task because you don't know anything about that person and you
Yeah.
don't know what
Yeah.
kind of way they are going to lead.
Yeah.
So the best kinds of outcomes for me is when the managers and the team leaders are there together, that you don't have that them versus us situation.
Yes, yes. Do you find sometimes that the entry level managers find it difficult to be coached, to be developed in this kind of way? Not necessarily for book coaching, but just for coaching in general.
Sometimes, yes, but if you do have individual one on one coaching, they become a lot more receptive because they don't have someone listening into the answer. And then,
Ah, I
in the
see.
same way that I get stories out of people from a good book coaching perspective, in the coaching session, I can ask questions in a safe environment. Then
Ah,
they
I
can say,
see.
"Oh, I never
Yeah,
actually thought about that." But it does work best if I have exposure to the whole team,
of course.
and then some of them do come to me privately and ask me a question that I come back and position to the leader without them knowing who asked the question.
Who asked the question? That actually makes them less vulnerable because you want them to open up, of course. Last question. Why now and why you? Why do you think this work is going to be critical for your career and just for your self-interest, perhaps?
So I think that change has been so rapid for us. We are learning things in a different way. We're learning a lot of stuff on social media, on YouTube, and that kind of thing. And that makes it an artificial environment to work in. And then you come into the workspace and you've got those kinds of expectations.
Ah,
And that makes it incredibly important to have those kinds of conversations so that you can again have the humanized conversation, understand that there's a real person. One of the things that I do in terms of goal setting is I make people discuss their goals together,
okay,
and then they start
okay.
realizing, oh, the thing that you wanted to read or the thing that you wanted to do, I also want to do that. And it really makes, there was
Yeah,
one session that we had that someone said, I think I just met my new best friend. And they've
wow.
been working at the same company, the same team for years, and they had no idea that
They
they
had
had
no
so
idea.
many similarities.
Yeah, wow. Kim, I'm so inspired. I just can't wait to see you in action one day and even co-creating something or doing something together with you. And I look forward for us to interacting in the future. Thank you so much for your time today.
Super. Thank you so much for having me.